Freysteinn Þorbergsson was born May 12, 1931. He died 23rd of October, 1974. Pretty young. From the late 1950s to the early 1970s, Þorbergsson was one of the leading Icelandic players. He won the Icelandic Chess Championship the year this tournament was played, 1960. He won the Nordic Chess Championship in 1965. D4 is played here by Þorbergsson. And Bobby, no surprise with knight f6, an Indian game. C4, and I mentioned earlier that when he transposed into a queen's pawn game, that he has played the East Indian quite a bit of late, although his overall favorite is the King's Indian. But this is another East Indian defense with e6. Now, knight f3 is the anti-Nimzo Indian. Now d5 transposes to a queen's gambit declined. Queen's knight variation with knight c3, and now bishop to b4 is played. This is Vyacheslav Rogotzin's variation or defense. Rogotzin lived from October 8, 1908 to March 11, 1962. He was a Soviet player, writer, and editor. And did you know? Maybe you don't know, so I'm going to tell you. Vyacheslav Rogotzin was a world chess champion. Not an over-the-board play, but correspondence play. Correspondence world champion. And he held the Grandmaster title both over the board and in correspondence chess. Bishop b4, Rogotzin's defense. a3 hits that bishop, and he trades himself off for the knight on c3 with check. Pawn takes the bishop, and c5. Pawn e3, castles, bishop d3, knight c6, and white castles. Knight a5 is played here. Not the usual approach. Normally we get d takes c4. That's answered by bishop takes the pawn. Queen c7. Bishop back to d3. We get pawn e5. Queen c2. And rook e8. That's all from volume E, section 58. The exchange variation, Osip Bernstein's variation of Gligorich's variation of the Nimzo Indian defense. The most frequently played move after rook e8 is pawn to e4, pawn to c4, bishop takes the pawn takes the pawn, pawn takes the pawn, knight to a5 here. Bishop goes back to d3 for the third time, queen takes queen, bishop takes queen, knight takes e4, rook to e1, bishop f5, defending against the super attacked knight, bishop f4, getting his last bishop out of bed, and then black plays knight d6. It gets a double exclam. So if you want a double exclam for free, play this opening. Coming back. That is the book line, and again, that was volume E, section 58, but with knight a5, we stay in volume D, section 38. Knight a5 from Fischer, knight e5 from Þorbergsson. That's much better than pawn takes pawn here. You don't want to play d takes c5, marked inaccurate. Knight takes the pawn on c4. I get a thumbs up. And then after queen here, I guess will come... Okay, that's marked inaccurate as well. What, queen e2? Yeah, okay, queen e2 makes more sense. Yeah, and then queen a5. Bishop takes knight, pawn takes bishop, etc. Knight e5 is the best move here. Here d takes c4. Knight takes c4. Don't play bishop takes c4, because after knight takes, and b6. So instead, knight takes c4, knight takes, and bishop takes, keeping the bishop pair. Queen c7, queen e2, pawn e5, bishop b2, e4. I prefer to get my bishop out of the way, get him out of bed, and make way for your rook. The other rook can come to e8 at the right moment. I get a check mark for this. It said bishop f5. The point is, get out of the way of the rook. Regardless of where you put the bishop, get him out of the way of the rook. That was my point, really. Not so much that it should come to d7, but that you should get out of the way of your rook. Get out of the way of your rook. Get out of the way. That was my point. Get that last peach out of bed. e4 was played. h3 just basically doesn't want the bishop to come to g4. Now that it can't be blocked with the pawn. It could be blocked with the pawn, but I've got a pawn here covering that square now. So now bishop f5 was played, and now c8 is available to my queen's rook. King's rook to d1, and sure enough, queen's rook to c8. Pawn to a4. Pawn takes the pawn on d4. Equal position. Eval bar giving the smidgenest of an advantage to the white over here. Rook takes d4, king's rook to d8, queen's rook to d1, rook takes rook, rook takes the rook, bishop e6, bishop takes bishop, pawn takes bishop, queen d1, pawn e5, queen b3 check. He should play rook b4 first. He should play rook b4, he plays queen b3. Rook b4, and then queen b3 can come later. At the right moment, of course. Like if I play rook d8 and hit your queen, for example, it's probably not the best choice. Maybe b6 would be better, but I called it exactly right. But my point was, play queen here next. That would really be wonderful. That's what the point was that I was trying to make. All right, queen b3 was played with check. Queen f7 interposes. Now rook b4. And sure, if queen takes, you've got some trouble. So he queen took queen first. Rook takes queen and pawn b6. Now rook b5. And he offered a draw. And it was Þorbergsson's only draw of the event. Bobby, it was the last round. He had the title in his pocket, 3.5 out of 4. He called it an early day and went home with first prize. And there you go. Let me get you the numbers. 98.5 for Þorbergsson, 98.8 for Bobby Fischer, 2,800 single game rating for White, and 3,000 single game rating for Bobby Fischer. Bada bing, bada boom.